Yuan, a seemingly ordinary girl, surprises everyone with her extraordinary strength, drawing the attention of the unbeatable Qin Yuji, the school bully. He cannot believe the girl's strength and is determined to defeat her at any cost to regain his position as the strongest in the region. What he doesn't know is the regime that the girl's family needs to follow to maintain her inexplicable shape. Kim Woo-jin was in his first year at Johnson High School, and there he was one of the most respected students as he was the strongest guy in the entire school. One day, Kim was walking with her friends and decided to show them her skills by hitting a special machine with all her strength, on which Kim managed to reach 998 points. Kim's friends were shocked to see that Kim managed to break the record so easily, almost reaching the maximum number of points in the stunt. After testing her strength, Kim invited her friends to walk a little further, but they said it was time to go home as they all had to go to school the next day. Just as Kim and her friends were getting ready to go home, they noticed a girl who also decided to hit the machine. And this girl was so strong that when she hit the machine, she simply broke it. Kim and her friends couldn't believe that this seemingly ordinary girl could break the machine with a single blow. This situation with the machine completely changed Kim's opinion that he was the strongest in school. Most of the time, Kim didn't care how much stronger his opponent was, as he always won. After some time, Kim began to think that there was no one else at school with whom he could compare his strength. One day he saw some girls doing tricks with a spoon, and Lee Soyeon, the same girl who broke the machine, she also wanted to show how to bend spoons, and after a few seconds, she showed everyone the spoon twisted into a ball. Kim couldn't even imagine that all this time, he could have lost such a strong opponent, and so she wanted to fight Lee at any cost. However, Kim couldn't imagine how it would be better to challenge her to a fight. Even though Lee was a girl, he was surprised by the great power she had. Kim believed that Lee was the strongest person, not just in the school, but in the entire region. As Kim thought of the best way he could challenge her, he heard from his classmates that today's gym class would be with the girls, and they would play dodgeball. Kim thought this would be a great opportunity to beat Lee in class since he was the best dodgeball player. An hour later, physical education class began, and students began dividing into teams before playing dodgeball. When the teams were formed, the teacher quickly sat down on the bench and started playing on the phone, while the students started playing. The boys' team threw the ball first, telling the girls' team that they had no intention of taking it easy, and were going to dominate them. After that, on the girls' side, a ball flew into one of the boys' face with lightning speed, making that boy leave the game soon after. Then Kim swung his arm with all his might and threw the ball toward Lee, hoping he could hit it. However, contrary to his expectations, Lee managed to get down on the ground and dodge the shot. During the game, Kim and Lee tried to hit each other all the time, accidentally hitting other players. After some time, almost all the players were already sitting on the eliminated bench, and meanwhile, Kim and Lee were the only players left on the field. Kim noticed that Lee was already completely exhausted and decided to take advantage of this moment to throw the ball at her with all her strength. For the first time in the entire game, Kim managed to hit Lee with the ball, who began to fall to the ground. He was incredibly happy that he had managed to prove that he was much stronger than Lee. However, instead of falling to the ground, Lee grabbed the ball with both hands, tensed his legs and managed to stand on the ground. After receiving such a blow, Kim couldn't believe what was happening, seeing right in front of her how she was able to withstand his throw. At that moment the bell rang, leaving him frustrated, as he didn't want his battle with Kim to end so suddenly. Several more classes passed, and as dusk fell, classes ended and students began to prepare to go home. Kim was not happy that her battle with Lu today had ended in a draw, promising himself that next time he would definitely defeat her. At one point, Lu broke out of her thoughts and suggested that they go home together, since they still lived in the same building and she needed to have a serious talk with him. Kim believed that Lee wanted to fight him again and that this would be a good opportunity to defeat her, and finally become the strongest student in the school again. With that, Kim agreed to Lee's request to go home together, and for the first half of the way, they simply walked in silence. At one point, Kim finally decided to ask Lee what she wanted to talk about, so she stopped and asked Kim directly if he liked her. Kim was shocked by what she heard, not understanding why Lee suddenly came to that conclusion. Lee then said that she noticed how Kim was staring at her more and more lately, and after the dodgeball game, her doubts about it only grew. Kim wanted to try to justify her behavior towards Lee, but still couldn't bring herself to tell her that he wanted to fight. Suddenly, Lee herself suggested that he was doing all this just to fight her. But she also added that even if he wants to fight her, he must understand that it is unpleasant to want to fight a girl much smaller than him, which made Kim feel very embarrassed. At that moment, a huge, pumped-up man appeared behind Kim, and when they saw him, she simply said that it was her father who had arrived. When Kim turned around, he saw in front of him two huge, pumped-up men who were much bigger than him. The boy was so scared that he was paralyzed, but soon after he remembered that he had not greeted, and immediately bowed to the man. After that, the strong man asked what this young man was doing next to his sister. After that, Kim greeted an even bigger and stronger man, who turned out to be Lee's father. Then, the two muscular men surrounded Kim and asked if he was Lee's friend. Kim could only look at him and didn't know that she had such a strange family. His father asked him why he wears his hair that color when school rules require students to wear their natural hair color. Kim just looked at Lee's father and told him that what hair color he should wear was a personal matter. Then Lee's brother got very angry and was about to hurt Kim by taking a disrespectful tone towards their father. Lee told her brother, Ambiel, as she had repeatedly told him that he should wear a school uniform, as without it no one sees him as a high school student. Ambiel said that even though he is only 14 years old, no one will believe he is from the school even if he wears a school uniform. At the same time, Lee's father was very interested in the fact that Kim spoke so boldly to him and his son without any fear, while anyone else would faint just by looking at them. Then, the father told Kim that even though Kim was several times smaller than him, he had a very strong will. Lee told his father that Kim was currently one of the leaders at the school. But upon hearing this, Ambiel and his father laughed out loud at the statement. Lee then told his father and brother that it was true, even though he dyed his hair, dressed like a bully, and had a very thin frame. Lee added that even with all of Kim's qualities, she still felt sorry for them laughing at him so openly. As Ambiel and her father continued to laugh loudly at Kim, he began to cry and ran away, shouting to Lee that she was worse off in this situation. After this incident, Lee and his brother and father returned home hungry. The equally muscular mother welcomed them along with her father and brother and said that they would have cure for dinner today. When everyone had changed their clothes and showered, the entire family sat down at the table and began to eat dinner. As they ate, Lee noticed that the food only contained chicken, vegetables and tofu, and no rice at all. In response, the father said that there should be no carbohydrates in his food. While the father ate, he looked at his daughter and noticed that her arms were still very thin. Then Rambiel also said that her sister was just skin and bones, but her mother replied that Lee should have slightly thin arms since she is still a girl. After that, Lee's father asked his daughter what her relationship was with the boy they met today. Lee noticed that her father and brother started laughing again, but she said that Lee really was the leader of the school. Meanwhile, Kim's older sister called him to go down to the kitchen and have dinner together. But when Kim's older sister opened his bedroom door, she saw him lying on his bed crying. His older sister wanted to know why her brother was crying now, as he normally didn't cry, even in situations where he was losing some kind of fight, so she figured it was all because of some girl. Assuming she really was a girl, Kim's older sister told her that she understood what Kim was going through now, as when she was 17, she also experienced her first failed relationship. Kim soon raised his head and shouted for his sister to get out of his room, telling him to have dinner without him. Meanwhile, Lee's father still wanted to know what his daughter's relationship was with that boy, which she said was that they just studied in the same class. The father said that for the first time he saw his daughter returning home with the boy, which is why he concluded that they were in love. But Lee denied his father's theory, and said there was nothing between them. Then Rambiel invited her to play, asking her who she would save if they were in the water, him or Kim. So Lee imagined a situation where her brother and Kim found themselves in the water. Lee knew that if that happened, his brother wouldn't have any difficulty with the situation. She also believed that if her brother was in such a situation with Kim, then Rambiel would try to get rid of him at the first opportunity. Without thinking twice, Lee said the first thing she would do was save Kim. Upon hearing this, Rambiel began to tease his sister, saying that she was in love with this boy. But Lee's father told his son that if he were in her place, he would also save Kim, and after that, he told his son to stop talking nonsense and calm down. Meanwhile, Kim left the house after dinner to take out the trash. As Kim walked down the street, he was thinking about how he could deal with Lee, in a way that rumors would definitely spread about it. At first, Kim thought it would be enough to tell her about the proposal to organize a fight, but he suddenly changed his mind, considering it a bad idea. As Kim walked down the street, he saw how some bully began to harass a girl. The girl tried to explain as clearly as possible to the drunk and angry bully that they could not be together. She also said that she was extremely embarrassed by the bully's behavior and that it was not the first time that she had proposed to this girl to go out with him. Then, the girl repeated once again that she would not meet him under any circumstances, which only angered the bully more. He was even more irritated by the fact that throughout the entire conversation, the girl was looking at him as if he were something disgusting. The bully's patience was completely exhausted, and he decides to use force since he failed to convince her with words. But a moment before the blow, Kim manages to intervene and hit the drunken bully in the face with all her strength. This girl and a few others were surprised at how a slight guy, at first glance, was not only not afraid of this bully, but also successfully neutralized him. During the impact, Kim didn't hesitate to call the bully a scum for his inappropriate behavior. His blow was so strong that the guy lost consciousness and was left on the ground with a bloody face. However, this blow did not cause Kim any of the positive emotions he had in a fight, since the only opponent who could awaken his Lee was still interested. The girl laughed softly and said that Kim once again helped, and that he still had the same combative character. Kim turned to face the girl. He looked closely and didn't understand who she was. He kept trying to remember this girl, reliving a bunch of different memories of her life in his head. But he couldn't remember who she was and how she knew him. The girl interrupted Kim's thoughts and told her that he had grown a lot since their last meeting, because when they were in elementary school, they were more or less the same height, to which Kim replied that she had also changed a lot, pretending to Maximum who recognized her. Observing the girl more closely, he noticed that she was wearing a Johnson School sports uniform, and then he told her that he would also be studying there in his third year, so she could visit him. After that, he said it was time to go, he had an important appointment. The girl interrupted Kim and told him that generally no one goes to important appointments dressed like that, to which he replied that no one would care what he wore. So, the girl said that nobody cares about his appearance, so this isn't such an important commitment. After that, the girl extended her hand to him, in honor of their first meeting in so many years, and in response, Kim extended her hand as well and greeted the girl, which made them both equally pleased to see each other. The next day, rumors spread around the school that Kim had defeated one of the high school's third-year students the night before. Everyone was surprised that in such a short time in high school, the boy had already defeated so many people. During one of the breaks, Kim's classmates were surprised by an unexpected visit from one of the school's students. This student was the same girl Kim had helped on the street last night, and she wanted to visit him. The boys knew this girl as Seo, who was just the queen of the high school gang, after which one of the boys pointed out the place where Kim usually sat. The Cirrus approached Kim and handed her her favorite chocolate milk, as thanks for helping her yesterday. Kim took the milk and said he did it because he was disgusted by that guy's behavior. Then she asked Kim what he was doing now, to which he replied that he was just thinking a little. As Kim drank her milk, he looked at Lee and already imagined in his head how he would fight her. Sil also began to look at Lee and think that Kim had fallen in love with Lee. At that moment, Lee felt that two people were already looking at her intensely, which only scared her more. Lee was so nervous about this that she accidentally broke her pen. Back in elementary school, Kim became Oh Si-ho's first real friend. The two were such good friends that when they were children, they developed a special handshake that they always used to greet each other. Many years have passed since that moment, and still, the Cirrus still remembered every movement of that handshake. However, Cirrus was upset that she and Kim stopped communicating with each other so quickly. After class, she watched Kim and Lee do pull-ups together. During the exercises, Lee began to question Kim for sweating so quickly doing pull-ups. But Kim told her that he sweated like that all the time, even when he wasn't working out, which she didn't believe at all. Then, suddenly, Kim took herself over the bar and asked Lee if she could do the same. Lee was shocked by what she saw as she had never done this before. Kim only teased Lee more, saying that even a strong woman like her couldn't do something like that. But it turns out that she was so irritated by Kim's behavior that out of anger, she simply tightened the grip she was holding, destroying the boy's self-esteem. Osiru just looked at everything that was happening with the two of them, and didn't understand how a guy like Kim could like a girl like Lee. The more she looked at them, the angrier she became at what she saw before her. In the evening, Oshiro went to one of the stores to buy a can of soda, but when he was about to get the last can of soda, he saw that Lee was standing next to her, and he also wanted to buy a soda for himself. The girls recognized each other immediately, and it was clear from their looks that they were not at all happy about the meeting. Oshiro immediately pretended that he was happy to see Lee, saying that he often saw her with Kim. She then told Lee that she was willing to give Lee the last can of soda if she wanted it so bad. Siho was clearly acting and expected her to refuse, but Lee didn't argue with her and took the last can of soda. A few minutes later, Lee was outside the store drinking her favorite soda, while Siho slowly drank a juice box. After a minute, Siho finished her juice and asked Lee if she was dating Kim. Lee almost choked when she heard the question and responded that she and Kim had no relationship. She also added that she wouldn't date a guy who dyed his hair blonde, and tried to act like he was the coolest guy in the whole world. The girl was surprised that even though Lee spent so much time with Kim, she still spoke so badly about him. Dong-suk appeared in front of the girls, the same guy Kim recently protected Siho from on the street. He was incredibly irritated when they mentioned Kim, and he wanted to know where the boy was now. Lee was so scared that out of fear, she accidentally squeezed the soda can in her hand. Dong-suk was irritated by Lee's sudden shout and told her to shut up, which she did. Siho still didn't understand why this guy started appearing around her, and it was starting to irritate her a lot. Looking a little closer, Siho saw that this guy was the same thug who pestered her last night. She asked Dong-suk why he came here, to which he replied that he wanted to get revenge on Kim for breaking his nose yesterday. Then, Dong-suk rudely asked her where Kim was now, to which she replied that she did not know, but even if she had known, she would never have told him. Then Donso started threatening the girl again, with terrible reprisals if she didn't call Kim there immediately. Despite heavy threats, Asivo completely refused to call Kim, which only angered the bully more. At that moment, Lee interrupted their conversation and started jumping between them, trying to attract attention to herself. Asivo was a little surprised by this courage, and didn't know what to do in such a situation. Lee, like a little girl, apologized for interfering, but politely asked Dong-soo and Siho to stop arguing with each other. Lee said that she knows how annoying Kim can be, but despite everything, this situation had nothing to do with them, and suggested that Dong-soo look for him at school tomorrow. However, Dong-soo didn't listen to Lee anymore and simply grabbed her by the head. An enraged Dong-soo began shaking Lee and yelling at her, demanding to deal with Kim right now. Siho asked Dong-soo to release her, but he only started shaking Lee harder. After a few seconds, Dong-suk got tired of holding Lee's head and shaking her, so he let go and hit her in the face. After that, Dong-suk grabbed Lee by the hair and told Siho to call Kim here now if she didn't want to see him kill Lee. Then Lee started laughing softly, which made Dong-suk start pulling her hair even harder. Suddenly Dong-suk was hit in the stomach by Lee with all her power, and he quickly let go of her in pain. Lee's blow was so strong that Dong-suk fell to his knees and began to scream in despair. Siho was shocked that Lee managed to take down a big guy like Dong-suk so easily. 10 years ago, Lee's father said that there are many different dangerous things and situations in this world, from harassment to demon attacks. Although Lee's father was always ready to protect Lee and his little brother, he still needed to prepare them to face anything, so that even the ones alone could deal with any danger, with the two learning various attack and self-defense techniques over several years. The guy was about to hit Lee as hard as possible, but she easily dodged the attack. No matter how quickly or aggressively Dong-suk tried to inflict any damage on Lee, she managed to dodge each of his attacks without any problems. Siho just watched Lee and Dong-suk's battle from the sidelines, never ceasing to be amazed at how skillfully Lee managed to dodge Dong-suk's blows. Seconds later in the battle, Lee still managed to hit the guy in the face, thus managing to stop and neutralize him. She hit him in the head with all her strength to take him down as quickly and efficiently as possible. The last thing Dong-suk saw when she found herself on the ground was Lee's foot, with him immediately losing consciousness after the blow. After that, several people appeared at the scene of the fight wanting to know what had happened to Lee. At that moment, Lee grabbed Siho's hand and they started to run away. As Lee was afraid that someone would recognize them from their school uniforms and report what happened to the school. A few minutes later, Lee and Asaru left the fight site so quickly that Asaru's breathing became labored. After a few seconds, she caught her breath and asked Lee why she helped. She told Lee how even when she was slapped, she didn't run away, but instead fought the man fearlessly. She thought about how sooner or later, even those who could be much stronger than Dong Sayok, could attack her. She then remembered the moment in her childhood when, after a long and hard training in self-defense, she wanted to give up and not practice anymore. Then Lee's father drew his daughter's attention to Rambiel, who despite his lack of strength, still continued to try his best. Lee's father then told her that if she continued to train as hard as her younger brother, she would be able to protect not only herself, but anyone else around her. Then Lee told Sihu that she just helped in a difficult situation and that she is not afraid at all if some stronger guys come after her, as she can defeat them as easily as Sun Bei. Sihu looked at Lee and thought that she was really nice, and she understood why she attracted so much attention from Qin. But despite this, the Sihu still considered Lee her number one enemy, against whom she would fight for Qin's attention. After the fight, Dong Sihu regained his senses and went up to the roof of one of the buildings with his friend Yang Su to smoke and recover. At that time, Yang made fun of Dong Suk because he was first defeated by a first-year high school student, and now he was defeated by a girl. In his defense, Dong Suk told Yang that all this talk about being defeated by a girl was nothing more than a rumor. But then Yang asked Dong Suk if him being beaten by Kim Woo-jin, who wasn't afraid of getting into a fight with anyone, was also a lie. The guy was very angry that his friend decided to make fun of him at a difficult time, but Yang also added that since Kim Woo-jin entered high school, the situation became more agitated, as this guy had already gotten into fights with some of his friends from other schools. In fact, this situation made Yang so angry that he couldn't concentrate on his studies, and he vowed to get revenge on Kim for everything he had done. The next morning, Kim went to school and was met on the way by his friend young Sharon. Sharon said he was aware of what was going on between Kim and Lee, but Kim didn't understand what he was talking about. Young then said that she knows that Kim is in love with Lee, because Young, in her class, said that Kim looked at Lee a lot and that it was very obvious about her interest in her. He also said that Kim had repeatedly shown her feelings for Lee through some provocative actions. In the end, Kim told his friend that it was none of his business, which he concluded that Kim really liked Lee. Kim then said that what really interested him in Lee was her strength, which was many times greater than his. Then he said he would love to fight, but he knows he would never fight a girl in his life. That's why he only compares his strength to Lee's in various low-impact competitions. Sharon heard what Kim was saying, realizing that her friend was just an idiot. Meanwhile, Lee and her friend were discussing what the menu would be at the cafeteria today, and after figuring out the menu, they both decide to go to the cafeteria. Once at the buffet, the two were horrified that there were so many people at the buffet, making them think they wouldn't be eating today. Suddenly they heard a commotion, and Dam-soo emerged from the crowd with a chocolate loaf and a bag of popcorn, happy to have been able to get some food so easily from the buffet. Then she approached him and politely asked him to share some food. Dong Seok, afraid that he was going to hit him again, fell to the ground in terror, wetting his pants and giving all his food to the girls. After that, the two ate half a loaf of bread each, which didn't make their hunger disappear, and her friend asked Lee what her relationship was with that guy at the buffet. When Lee, still hungry, entered the room, they saw Kim sitting in front of them with her legs thrown over the table. He only had a whole loaf of bread with which he teased the already hungry Lee. She said she was hungry, and Kim said she would give her the bread if she fought him and beat him. Lee had no choice, she was ready for any battle just to satisfy her hunger. Kim actually said she wasn't going to fight her, but she had already thought about what they would compete against. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Yang wanted to find Kim and deal with him as quickly as possible, but she couldn't find him. Then Yang asked the girls passing by which class Kim Woo-jin studied in. When Yang found the room he needed and entered it, something small immediately flew towards him. Yang managed to react and catch the object flying towards him, discovering that it was an ordinary table tennis ball. After that, Yang looked more closely at the guy who asked him to return the ball, and recognized him as the same Kim Woo-jin. The same thing Dong-suk told him. However, Yang still didn't understand what Kim and Lee were doing now. Then, Kim replied that the girl and him were currently having a table tennis battle. When Kim again asked Tang to return the ball, Yang simply caught it and crushed it. Then Yang put on the most serious expression on his face, saying that he came here to talk to Kim, but Kim didn't take Yang seriously and took out another tennis ball from his pocket, one that he secretly stole from the gym teacher. Yang was very angry at how Kim blatantly ignored orders from him, and then, out of control with rage, he kicked the tables that Kim and Lee were throwing with all his strength to the side. After that, Yang took the ball from Kim. he threw it out the window and asked them to go out to talk again. But then Kim took another ball out of his pocket, and after that Yang already hit the boy in the face. At that moment, Lee took the bag of popcorn that Don Sayok gave him and looked at everything that was happening in front of him. Yang told Kim that he had already crossed the limit he could tolerate. But Kim just laughed at Yang, saying that her punch was nothing special. At that moment, she was watching what was happening with great interest and attention, while some other students tried to take her popcorn. Kim invited Yang to fight him, here and now, as he was also irritating him a lot, which only made Yang angrier. The day before, Yang and Dong-suk discussed how Yang would deal with Kim. Yang believed that Kim only fought strong guys and therefore it was unlikely that she would refuse to fight him. Yang said that she would find Kim and challenge him to a fight tomorrow at school since he has practice exams today. After that, Yang got up and was about to leave, finally saying that tomorrow he, together with all his intelligence, would solve the problem with the boy in the calmest way possible. Dong Sayok looked at everything that was happening between Yang and Kim, being extremely surprised. He didn't understand how Yang was making so much noise, while the students looked at Dong-suk and laughed at his appearance. Yang smiled at the fact that the first-year high school student was not only unafraid but even offered to fight him. Afterwards, Yang ordered Kim to go to the wasteland after classes where their battle would take place. After class, Kim went to the vacant lot to fight Yang. However, Kim's path was blocked by Shin, who said that all the students were already talking about their fight today. Shin advised Kim to apologize to Yang and avoid a fight, but Kim no longer listened to him, leaving the school to meet Yang. Lee or Siho overheard Shin telling Kim who Yang really was. His friend told him that Yang was one of the most dangerous guys who used to study at Yanko School. 2 years ago, Yang also became the one who dared to stand up to all the bullies in this school. Kim became even more determined to face Yen in battle. Instead of backing down, Kim responded with a boisterous laugh at John's advice, dismissing it outright. Oblivious to the fact that Yen was observing him, Kim boldly invited his companions to join him in witnessing his inevitable victory over Yen. As evening approached, Kim arrived at the vacant lot where Yen and several others were already waiting. Kim noticed the presence of several unfamiliar faces, which led him to suspect that Yen had brought reinforcements to outnumber him. However, Yen quickly clarified that the crowd had gathered merely as spectators. Upon closer inspection, Kim recognized some of these onlookers as former hooligans he had encountered in the past, which left him stunned at how Yen had reformed them. Yen, arriving 3 minutes late, was eager to start the fight as high school graduates had little time to spare. When Kim inquired about what Yen had done to the former hooligans, Yen calmly replied that he had set them on the right path, and warned that after defeating Kim, he intended to do the same for him. Unfazed by Yan's words, Kim interrupted him, insisting that they start the battle immediately, as time was of the essence. Yen, taking off his glasses, prepared himself for the confrontation, and within moments, the two were locked in a fierce and intense battle. Among the spectators, opinions varied. One observed that despite Kim's formidable fighting skills, he was destined to become a better student, like the others who had been reformed. Another remarked on Kim's fierce and stern demeanor, predicting that he would lose to Yen that day. A third spectator acknowledged Kim's worthiness as an opponent but doubted his ability to defeat Yen, despite his best efforts. During the battle, Kim managed to inflict a serious injury on Yan's arm. Despite the pain, Yen refused to give up and continued to fight. This turn of events shifted the crowd's support toward Kim, urging him to defeat Yen and liberate the school from his authoritarian rule. Yen, noticing the shift in the crowd's loyalty, warned that he would remember the faces of those who had spoken against him. The spectators, suddenly fearful, fell silent and resumed watching the fight in anxious anticipation. Earlier in the day, when Kim invited Lee to witness the battle between the heads of the first and third classes, she had hesitated. Although she had heard tales of Kim's fighting prowess, she had never seen him face an opponent as formidable as Yen. In her eyes, Yen also did not seem particularly strong, which only heightened her curiosity about why they were both regarded as the school's most formidable fighters. After some persuasion from her friend, who had unexpectedly decided to join them, Lee agreed to go, so he, who had just left school, was equally intrigued by the prospect of witnessing this showdown and decided to accompany them as well. She had just left school and was also planning to watch the fight between Kim and Yen. As she expressed her desire to join them, Lee observed that so he seemed particularly interested in watching others fight. However, So-hee quickly corrected this assumption, insisting with an embarrassed expression that she wasn't actually fond of violence, she was simply curious about the outcome of the battle. As the fight progressed, Yen observed Kim and was surprised by how much stronger he appeared than expected. Similarly, Kim assessed Yen and initially believed that he could easily defeat him if he only used half his strength. However, it soon became apparent that an all-out effort would be necessary for a decisive victory. In a bid to raise the stakes, Kim proposed a wager: if Yen won, Kim would follow the path Yen had prescribed for the reformed spectators. But if Kim emerged victorious, Yen would have to attend school dressed in a female uniform. Yen, reflecting on his past self, accepted the terms without hesitation. Kim then remarked that Yen must see the punishment as a reward given how readily he agreed. Yen replied indifferently, stating that his only concern was not losing the fight. The battle resumed with Yen attempting to neutralize Kim by driving his knee into him, but despite exchanging several blows, the two fighters eventually stood back up, pausing to exchange words. Yen suddenly confessed that Kim reminded him of his younger self, which only strengthened his resolve to guide Kim toward the right path. However, Kim was puzzled by Yen's words, unsure of what he meant. Yen then began to share a story from his past. He admitted that a few years ago, he was much like Kim, drinking heavily, smoking, getting into fights, and cruising around on his motorcycle without a care in the world. But over time, this lifestyle began to disgust him. One day, while drinking with friends at a playground, he realized that he was becoming someone he didn't want to be. During that gathering, one of Yan's friends mentioned almost getting into a fight with his younger brother, who was still in junior school. The friend explained how his brother had asked for help with homework, which he had easily provided. However, when the younger brother returned the next day, he complained that all the answers were wrong and insulted him. Curious, Yen asked to see the problems and quickly pointed out that his friend's brother was correct, the answers were indeed wrong. This led to an argument, with Yen insisting that the answer to one of the problems was 6, while his friend stubbornly claimed it was 8. Irritated by Yan's perceived arrogance, his friends decided to teach him a lesson. They tossed a live frog into his beer mug and forced him to drink the entire contents, including the frog. It was at that moment that Yen had a revelation: if he continued down this path, his life would never improve. He decided then and there to abandon his destructive habits and sever ties with his toxic social circle. As Yen recounted this story, Kim listened intently, though his mind kept drifting to what it must have been like to drink beer with a live frog in it. Yen concluded by telling Kim that if he didn't start making an effort to change, he would find himself on the same self-destructive path Yen had narrowly escaped. Yen warned Kim that if he didn't start putting in the effort, he would never achieve anything meaningful in life. He reminded Kim that he still had the opportunity to improve, especially since he was only in his first year of study. But Kim had grown tired of the conversation and was eager to resume the fight. Yen quickly realized that Kim wasn't ready to absorb the lessons he was trying to impart, so he decided to stop talking and deliver a couple of serious blows instead. However, Kim deftly dodged Yan's attacks and delivered a powerful strike to Yan's stomach, sending him crashing to the ground. As Yen lay prone, Kim prepared to stomp on him, but Yen managed to roll out of the way just in time. Kim acknowledged that Yen had indeed pulled himself together and changed his lifestyle, but then asked why Yen hadn't simply transferred to a different school to start fresh. Yen explained that he had considered transferring but ultimately decided against it. He realized that he didn't need a new school; instead, he wanted to transform his current one. Yan's goal was to create a positive learning environment by reforming the school's bullies. He believed in giving them a second chance to change, and so he beat the bad habits out of them and pushed them to study hard enough to get into university after graduation. Meanwhile, Lee tried to get a better view of the fight between Kim and Yen, but Seo and So-hee, who were with her, were unable to enter the wasteland area because Yan's reformed bullies were blocking all possible entry points. So-hee mentioned that she and Seo couldn't climb the wall like Lee could, and Seo added that if there were any holes or cracks in the wall, they might be able to peer through them. Lee then descended from the wall and offered to make a hole for them. When Seo asked how she planned to do that, Lee replied that she would simply break through the wall, which terrified So-hee, fearing they might get caught. With swift precision, Lee punched the wall, and in less than a second, a large hole appeared. During the fight, Kim continued to hear Yan's explanations about how he had given all the bullies a second chance and how this gesture had positively changed their lives. Yan's words were confirmed by the reformed hooligans themselves, who added that their parents were pleased with the changes they had made. However, Kim was skeptical and pointed out that just recently, one of the reformed students, Don Sik, had slapped a first-year student. Yan was stunned by this revelation, leading Kim to conclude that Yan was unaware of the incident. Not stopping there, Kim recounted another recent incident. A few days ago, Kim had been walking down the hallway when he accidentally bumped shoulders with Choi Kyu-suk, a second-year student. Without any warning, Choi had responded by hitting Kim in the face with all his might, knocking him to the ground. Kim realized that Choi Kyu-suk had intentionally instigated the conflict, provoking yet another fight. He then speculated that Yan might not have been aware of this incident, reasoning that if Yan had known, he would have immediately begun re-educating Choi. Kim went on to tell Yan that Choi and Don Sik were the type of bullies who acted weak and submissive in front of someone like Yan, but behaved aggressively toward weaker students who couldn't defend themselves. These bullies managed to hide their true nature from Yan, who seemed blind to the malice they harbored when he wasn't around. Despite Yan's efforts to reform these students, they continued to bully others whenever they got the chance. Kim questioned whether Yan could truly be unaware of such bullies, given that rumors about them were widespread. He wondered if Yan had knowingly allowed such behavior to persist, despite his claims of upholding school discipline. Regardless of Yan's awareness, Kim found it repulsive that Yan pretended to be fully committed to enforcing discipline at Junso School, while turning a blind eye to the very issues he claimed to be addressing. Yan's reformed bullies, who had been watching the fight, suddenly felt ashamed of their own past behavior, realizing they had contributed to the problem. Kim then called Yan a hypocrite and an idiot, accusing him of only targeting bullies who directly inconvenienced him, while justifying his actions as noble. At first, Yan was ready to retaliate, but he was distracted by a loud noise coming from one of the walls of the wasteland. The sound was caused by Lee, who had successfully created a small hole in the wall, allowing her, Seo, and Sohee to watch the fight. Yan glanced over and was shocked to see that a girl had managed to punch through a concrete wall so easily. Taking advantage of Yan's distraction, Kim delivered a powerful punch to Yan's face, not missing the opportunity to insult him by calling him trash and an idiot. Yan quickly refocused on the fight, dodging Kim's attacks while trying to land his own blows. Meanwhile, the girls watched the intense battle, surprised by the ferocity of the punches being exchanged. Lee noticed that Kim was in a tough spot, struggling to fend off Yan's relentless assault. She sarcastically remarked that Kim must be a masochist, given how much he seemed to enjoy the brutal exchange. As Kim and Yan continued to clash, Lee shouted at Kim, mocking him for being a lousy fighter and calling him a yellow-haired anchovy. This insult caused Yan to momentarily stop hitting Kim, and he began to laugh at Lee's comment. Sensing an opportunity, Kim launched another attack, but this time Yan managed to block the blow. Despite his successful defense, Yan struggled to stay on his feet after the impact. Kim then attempted to land a high kick to Yan's face, but Yan countered by tripping him, causing Kim to fall to the ground. Yan seized the moment and prepared to punch Kim in the face as hard as he could before Kim could recover. However, Kim was quick to adapt. As Yan's face came close, Kim delivered a powerful kick to Yan's head, even as Yan managed to land a punch on Kim's face at the same time. The simultaneous blows left both fighters lying on the ground, covered in bruises and wounds. Despite their injuries, Kim was the first to regain his composure. He grabbed Yan by the hair and began mercilessly punching him in the face. Yan, determined not to lose and be forced to wear a girl's uniform to school, fought back fiercely. He also grabbed Kim by the hair and started landing punches on him with all his remaining strength. After several exhausting seconds, both Kim and Yan were too worn out to continue hitting each other. Though physically drained, Kim was not ready to give up and was about to resume his assault on Yan when he suddenly felt someone grab his clothes. Turning around, Kim saw that it was Young Sehin, who had come to stop the fight. Young lifted Kim to his feet and scolded him for agreeing to such a reckless fight. But with all the determination he could muster, Kim retorted that he had still managed to defeat Yan. The girls were surprised at how easily Young had entered the wasteland and how effortlessly he took control of the situation, preparing to take the exhausted Kim home. As Young carried Kim out of the wasteland, he noticed the girls and advised them to head home immediately, warning that the area might be too dangerous for them. Concerned, Lee asked about Kim's condition, to which Young reassured her that Kim would be fine. Siho then approached Young and asked why he had come to the wasteland in the first place. Young explained that he was there to pick up Kim before he got even more bruised. From this, Lee inferred that this wasn't the first time Kim had been involved in such fights. Young confirmed her suspicion, telling her that back in middle school, Kim had frequently participated in similar brawls, and each time, he had ended up battered and bruised just like this. Chan took care of Kim after the fight, and Lee couldn't decide whether Chan was simply too kind-hearted or just naive.